Hey, everybody, and welcome to the watch along for My Girl. And I also have My Girl too, but which I also like, not as well as the original, but it's still a pretty decent movie. But tonight's going to be the original My Girl, um, starring Anna Chlumsky, Macaulay Culkin, Dan Aykroyd, and Jamie Lee Curtis. Um, Little bit of a tearjerker towards the end, so have your tissues handy if you're prone to shedding tears during the movie. Um, I may or may not shed tears during the movie. I know the first time I saw this, I did shed many tears, mainly because I wasn't expecting what happened to happen. Um, so that's all I'm going to say about it, other than just have your tissues at the ready if you think you might need them. For those of you that have seen My Girl, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. Also, I realize that I'm fully competing with the Super Bowl tonight, so there may not be anybody in here tonight. I may be all by my lonesome. However, if there are any of you out there, now I know Super Batman Nerd, I don't know if you're still in here or not, but you were in here chatting. If you are in here, welcome. And anybody can come in here at any point in time while I'm doing this watch along. I kind of toyed with the idea of maybe canceling it and not doing it tonight. But then I thought, what the hey, I've got it. Most things are ready. I might as well go ahead and do it. So, um, I'll get some housekeeping stuff out of the way. And then for those of you that are in here, you can watch along with me as we watch My Girl. And so, first of all, I do have a new design that I just created a little while ago. Um, and that is for the Canadian horror design that I promised that I would have done here very shortly. So, give me one moment and I will share my screen with you guys and gals. So, uh, we've got the Canadian horror shirt. It's not horror if it ain't Canadian horror. Now, whether you agree or disagree with that statement, um, for those of you that do and want to get you a shirt that advertises it and wear it proudly, here is me with my bottle of Moosehead, um, with my Bloody Valentine shirt from Fright Rags on. Um, so if you feel compelled to buy this shirt, you can get it now for the low price of $16 on TeePublic. And I'll be sure to put my storefront URL in there. But again, you can get many different colors, whatever's your pleasure. I like these heather versions, like the red heather and the turquoise heather, and even the tie dye. You can get the tie dye as well. You can get green for the Moosehead bottle if you want to. So just all different kinds of colors. And remember, you can get these same designs on mugs and pillows and totes and pins and stickers, magnets, wall art. Yeah, so plus we've got the little Stevie Torrance shirt. We have Midday with Dana and Jay, both with a transparent background and not with a transparent background. We have the Reggie Valentine shirt. We have the retro Reggie Valentine t-shirt. The TMI show shirt, breaking down bears and dropping jaws since 2023. We have the original movie Munchies shirt. We have, at the request of Blissful, we have the movie Munchies Deliverance Squeal Like Pigs in a Blanket shirt. Plus, we have 2 original designs that I came up with early on. The Dana on Deck t-shirt for Deadites on Deck, and Dana on Deck Logo 2 t-shirt as well. And those you can get in many different colors and sizes, and also can get this same artwork on mugs and stickers and totes and pillows and all kinds of things. So, in case you feel compelled to purchase one of these or several of these, I will put my TeePublic storefront URL in the chat there. You, Super Batman Nerd, you say Super Bowls is just like wrestling, except they're fully clothed and fighting for procession over a ball. Yeah, I was never one for football. It just really never done anything for me. But if you're into it, you're into it. And I totally get being into certain things that not everybody necessarily is into. In fact, I like several movies that most people don't like, but I do. So, for those of you that are watching the Super Bowl or are otherwise engaged, feel free to watch this on the replay if you like. I hope for those of you that were able to join me for the movie Munchies earlier today, where I made the chocolate heart-shaped cupcakes with pickaxes, red frosting, red buttercream frosting, edible glitter, cake drip, and pickaxes in the middle. I hope you enjoyed that. For those of you that didn't get to see that, of course, that is on the replay as well. And you can take a gander at that. And so, like I said, we are going to be watching My Girl here in a couple of minutes. I am queued up on the Columbia Pictures logo, about 13 seconds in on the Blu-ray. I am not sure if I ran out of time and didn't get a chance to look and see if My Girl was available anywhere like Tubi or anything like that. So hopefully if you're planning on watching along, you have. Well, you can watch it free with ads on, it looks like on, oops. If you don't mind watching commercials, you can watch it free with ads on YouTube. So let me put that link in there for you guys and gals that might be watching along. Mine is not, this is just a Mill Creek Entertainment Blu-ray, no frills kind of thing that's got My Girl and My Girl 2 on it. Both starring Anna Chlumsky. And I apologize if I'm mispronouncing her name. So about 7:18 or so, we'll go ahead and get this party started for whoever's in here. I did want to remind everybody that I will be doing another Stephen's Kingdom tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And let me let you guys and gals know what I will be covering. The movies I'll be covering are Stand By Me, Creepshow 2, and The Running Man. So Tuesday will be another Everybody Wants England, and I'll be covering 3 more movies in the England catalog, and those movies will be Big Wednesday, The Courage and the Passion, and Blood Brothers, all of these from 1978. Hey, Blissful. So, give it about another minute, and we'll go ahead and get this movie started for those of you that are in here. I do apologize that I was late getting my dinner, so I am eating soup as we do this. I don't think any of you guys and gals will mind. So, alrighty. We are at 7:18 here, so we'll go ahead and do the countdown and get this movie started. So here we go. And I'll be glad to give anybody a timestamp if you come in a little later and need a timestamp. So here we go. 3, 2, 1. Press play. Leslie, you say, nah, I'm late cooking tonight. I've been late doing everything today. Except the movie Munchies, I think I was pretty well on time for it. So both of them are on YouTube, Super Batman Nerd? This has always been a favorite of mine. I always thought Anna Chlumsky and Macaulay Culkin worked really well together. And this is actually introducing Anna Chlumsky. So this is the first thing she was in. So we get the idea pretty early on that Veda, which is Anna Chlumsky's character, is basically she's scared of death. Her father is a mortician. Her father, played by Dan Aykroyd here. And she basically, it appears her dad's a good father, but he really doesn't have time. He doesn't pay attention. His wife has passed away, so he lost his wife. Veda lost her mother, who she was really close to. Their grandma has moved in, or her grandma has moved in with the family. It's supposed to be Madison, Pennsylvania in 1972. And which I think is part of the allure of this movie for me, that it takes place in the 70s. And we see Macaulay Culkin plays Thomas J. there, one of Veda's friends, and the other boys are, calling him Chicken, and Veda tells them to leave him alone. Griffin Dunne is also on this. I absolutely love Griffin Dunne. I'm going to talk about him more when he gets on the screen. But Veda basically is convinced that she's going to die of some horrible disease because she knows all about these dead people and she hears what they have died of or whatever. And so there's going to be scenes where she goes to the doctor and she says, I have this disease. It's my prostate, she says at one point, when she doesn't even have a prostate. Leslie, you say you love this movie. It brings back good memories. Yeah, it always brings back good memories to me as well. Super Batman Nerd, you say it's been ages since you've seen this. So Veda was supposedly supposed to show the little boys a dead body. And she opens up the casket, there's no body in there. But so she says sometimes they're not real all the way dead. And so she's using her grandma as a way to scare the little boys because they think that, oh, the corpse got up out of the casket and, in the rocking chair. But you can see that Veda loves her grandma, or grandmoo, as she calls her. And I'm guessing that grandmoo is suffering from Alzheimer's. And I guess being a mortician would be just like any other job. Once you get used to, dead bodies being carted in, and it's your job to, make them look good for the funeral. So we're going to get introduced to Jamie Lee Curtis's character here, who pulls up in her RV, and she is going to apply for the hair and makeup job, and she doesn't know that she's going to be doing hair and makeup for dead people. So Veda starts singing here with Arthur, her father's assistant, and they're having a good time. And then Veda's dad says, "I'm embalming my high school teacher. Don't sing." So that kind of puts a damper on things there. So she sees that this guy had cancer of the prostate. And there is Miss Jamie Lee Curtis there. I love this outfit she's got on, by the way. I love most of the outfits that Jamie Lee Curtis has in this movie. Bliss, will you say you have a cousin that's a mortician? He used to measure people at our family gatherings. And so Veda's saying, "Have you had the unfortunate experience of losing a loved one?" And she's like, "Can I see your dad just for a second?" She's probably thinking, "Boy, this kid's weird." So she's going into her spiel, "I'm a licensed cosmetologist," and what salon she was working on or working in. And she says, "I put people right at ease." And he said, "Mr. Bodo, these people are already at ease." He says, "It's not a beauty parlor, it's a funeral parlor." Hey, J Reels NB, you said this movie always makes me cry. Yeah, I mean, it's been known to make me cry as well. So we're getting a little bit of a foreshadowing here because they're bringing in a very small coffin, and Veda wants to know, why is it so small? And she says it for a child, and of course her father says, "Of course not, it's for short people, very short people." So Shelley's thought about it, and she's going to go ahead and take the job. So now we're seeing Veda and Thomas J, riding their bikes around town. And even though Veda is very sarcastic at times to Thomas J, you can tell that she really likes him. I love Dan Aykroyd movies, Sewer Batman Nerd. You won't hear me say one bad thing about the man. So Veda's seeing what appears to be a sick child there, and she goes to Dr. Welty's office. And they're evidently used to Veda coming in. And so the nurse, a receptionist, says, "What's wrong today?" And she says, "I'm very sick." So she says Dr. Welty will see Veda now. And she says, "Well, what is it? I can handle it." He says, "You're perfectly healthy." And she says, "That can't be. I have all the classic symptoms." And he says, "Sweetheart, did they bring Mr. Layton to your house?" And he tells her nicely, "You've got to stop this. There's nothing wrong with you." And she says, "I'll just have to get a second opinion." And she says, "The whole medical profession is a crock." And there is Griffin Dunn. What an adorable man. I'm sorry, but it's just like Griffin Dunn. So Griffin Dunn's character is Doctor Mr. Bixler, who is their teacher. So Veda, she really loves Mr. Bixler. He's her favorite teacher, and she's got a little girl crush on Mr. Bixler. So she finds out, that he's going to be teaching a summer writing class. And so, of course, she wants to, go to the class. And here we're going to hear her singing the song Bill, or Wedding Bell Blues, actually. You can see she's drawing a heart around Mr. Bixler's head, and in the picture, she's looking at him with such love. And now we see Veda lying on the floor, and of course, when Shelley sees her, she thinks uh, something is very wrong with Veda. And to which her father says, "Oh, she's just pretending." And she says, "I think it's my prostate." And there's Richard Mazur playing Harry's brother, I believe. Griffin Dunn's also good in After Hours as well, Super Batman, which I need to watch the rest of. Here's another great outfit that Jamie Lee Curtis has on. I love those jeans with the embroidery down at the bottom and the shirt. It's just beautiful. So we're seeing that a lot of the girls make fun of Veda. And you can see that Judy, the third girl there, the one that's talking right there, really wants to be friends with Veda, but her other two friends just like to make fun of Veda. And we also find out that Thomas J is allergic to everything because Shelly was going to give him some of a candy bar or a whole candy bar, and he's like, I'm allergic. And she says to chocolate, and they say everything. So she asks Shelly how she can get $35 because she wants to go to Mr. Bixler's writing class. So Shelly suggests that Veda ask her dad for the money. So you can see they're watching All in the Family. So she asks if she can have $35, and he says that's a lot of money for a little girl. And she tells him what it's for. And he says last month you wanted to play the violin, then you wanted to be a ventriloquist. And he says, well, maybe next summer on the money. And Veda says he forgot the time I wanted to be a magician. I was really good at making myself disappear. And so you can see how she feels about her relationship with her father at this point. Sir Batman Nerd, you're only allergic to shellfish. Yeah, so got to be careful around that shellfish, right? So we see, we're going to see how scared Veda is by, the dead people being in the house. Um, because her basketballs went down in the basement. And we can see that there's a body covered with a sheet down there. And so Shelly, innocently sees that the door's open. She closes it. And it's an old house and a little hard to close. So Veda's running back up the stairs with her basketball. And the door's going to be stuck. And she's screaming to please somebody open the door. So now she's crouched down singing. So at this point, Shelley knows there's a problem here. So this is going to be the first disagreement that Shelley and Harry have over Mrs. Porter's makeup. And he said, "Didn't I give you a picture of what she looked like?" And she, looked like a schoolmarm. He said, "This was the Reverend Porter's wife. You have her looking like a $2 hooker." And she said, "I think she looks nice." And she's explaining, you know, how she, did the makeup. And she said, "Nobody wears his hairdo anymore." And Harry says, "She did. This photo was taken a month ago at the church food drive. And she wanted to get past the schoolmarm image." And he says, "That wasn't an image. She was an old schoolmarm." And he says, "Fix it." And we know what happens when a boss says fix it, right? So then she goes into, I was just wondering if anything is wrong with Veda. And she says, "I don't think she's just playing. I think she's confused about death." And he's like, "She was raised in a funeral home. She should know a thing or two about it." And he says, "Look, don't give me any advice about my daughter, okay?" So everybody in my nerdy say, "Yeah, no tasty food like crab, lobster, or shrimp." I really like crab. And we find out that Thomas J's a big Ringo fan. That's why he wants to drive them to Liverpool. So Veda has found Shelley's romance novels. And of course, they have a discussion about divorce because Shelley says she's divorced. And Veda says, "Daddy says it's bad when people get divorced." So now they find out where Shelley has her savings. And remember when Veda wanted $35 for that writing class? And she gives the excuse that she wants to, she needs to go to the bathroom, and Shelley's going to go on in the house. And so Veda's going to see her opportunity. So I would love to have a teacher like Griffin Dunn is in this. So he's teaching an adult writing class. and he's telling people not to have judgment of other people's writing. Constructive criticism is okay, but judgment of other people's writing, that's what he wants them to get away from. And somebody else I wanted to bring up during this movie is Tom Villard, who sadly passed away from cancer after sometime shortly after the film Popcorn. And Tom Villard is talking right now, talking about how wonderful it is that Veda wants to be a writer. And I'm assuming the girl that's talking now is Tom Villard's girlfriend in this. So Veda says she wrote a poem too, and so she's going to read it about ice cream. It's ode to ice cream. And her teacher says, it's very sweet and it rhymes and all that's good. But he says, you're not expressing to me what's in your soul. He wants her to talk about her fears and her desires, her innermost secrets. And she says, my fears and secrets. I'm afraid I killed my mother. So there's like one of the big stingers in the movie. And we know Veda didn't really kill her mother, but basically her mother, we'll find out, died after giving birth to Veda. So we see Harry singing and playing the tuba for Grandma. So then Harry apologizes and says he was a little harsh the other day. And she says, I shouldn't stick my nose in other people's business. But she says she likes Veda very much. So now we're seeing Veda and Thomas J fishing. We can see really that Veda's more of a tomboy at this point. which I was too, which is probably one of the reasons why I connect so much with this movie. So you can see that Veda has a tender heart too, and she didn't want the fish to die. So, she pulled the hook out and they put it back. And she said, "Did he get away?" And we can see Thomas J look, and we know that fish is not going to be okay. But he tells Veda that he got away. So they're going to be blood brothers. And as gross as that may sound, he pulled the scab off his arm. She had poked herself with the hook, and now they're mixing their blood, which I know is not a healthy thing to do, but so you can see that Harry's obviously attracted to Shelley, and she's talking about, she's hinting that she wants him to take her out on a date to the drive-in. And she's saying, "I don't think there's anything more romantic than going to the drive-in." Hint, hint, huge hints. And he's like, he doesn't show much interest. But he does say, "I do enjoy playing bingo if you'd like to join me at the church for a game." And so she agrees. So there's a mutual attraction for these two people. And so Veda asked her, "Are you going somewhere?" And she says, "Nope." And she says, "Well, why are you putting lipstick on?" And she says, "A girl's got to look her best." So I think it's funny. It's obvious that they've already put some makeup on Anne Chlumsky here, but um, she's a pretty little girl here anyway. But um, so Shelley's going to add a little bit, and she's actually given Veda probably her first makeup lesson. And she says, "Shelley, do you think I'm pretty?" And she says, "Yes, Veda, I think you're very pretty." And she says, "The boys at school don't think I am." And Shelley's basically like, "They will. Give them time." And she tells her, "You can never wear enough blue eyeshadow." So now Veda's going to kind of acts seductive to see if Thomas J notices. And he says, "Is your lip bleeding?" And she says, "No." And then he wants to know what's wrong with her eyes. And she says, "A girl can never wear too much eyeshadow." And he's just wanting to know where her bike is so they can go riding bikes. So then they find a picture in the garage of Harry with his wife. And I just wonder because that does look like a real younger picture of Dan Aykroyd. So I'm wondering if that's him with his real wife, maybe. And Veda or Thomas J asks, what does Veda think Kevin's like? And she's explained. I think this is a really sweet, sweet scene here. So Harry's brother basically says, Harry, 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 don't you know it's never a good thing to lie to your big brother? And so he finally says, I'm going out with Shelley. And he says, oh, that's great. So his brother says, let me fill you in on today's women. He says the last time you dated, something happened, the sexual revolution. And then he tells him, you don't have to pull her chair out. You don't have to hold the door open for her anymore. And he says, you know what else is missing? Bras. But for the most part, he's given him all wrong information. And Veda starts asking questions. Why is he dressed up to go play bingo? And Veda wants to go, and he says, no, I think you better stay here with Grandma. She's starting to get irritated now. She's gonna sneak over to where they're playing bingo at the church. But she's gonna stop by and see if Thomas J can go with her. And so he says, I can't go because my mom will get me if I go. And she calls him a pacifist and a bedwetter. So now Harry's explained to Shelley his theory on winning at bingo, or mainly just more activity. So Thomas J ends up going with Veda, and he says, watch bingo. I don't even like to play bingo. Why would I want to watch it? She says, I had a terrible thought, Harry. I'm going to be putting makeup on some of these people very soon because there's a lot of old people there. He says, why do you think these seats were empty? Yes, Radhammer. Actually, was for bees or whatever you want to call them. Yes. So Harry and Shelley are getting ready to kiss. Veda doesn't like that, so she yells bingo. So now these two old guys are going to get in a fight. And Harry's having to break up the potential fight there. So now Harry and Shelley are back. So Harry's trying to do, what his brother told him he should do, not opening the car doors and stuff like that. So Harry's going to see Shelley's RV. And so she finally says, "Are you mad at me?" He's like, "No, why?" She says, "Well, tonight you seemed a little cool, not opening car doors." And he said, "All that was Phil." So Harry opens up and says his wife died due to complications from childbirth, and she died 2 days after Veda was born. So then Shelley says, "Dance with me." And he says, "Here." And she said, "This is where we are." I like this little kick she does with her foot. Makes that table or whatever go down so they have more room to dance. So she just finally says, "Do you want to kiss me?" So now they're kissing. And that's exactly what Veda doesn't want them to do at this point. And she says, "Maybe we can play bingo again sometime." He says, "I'm tired of bingo. Maybe we should try that drive in of yours." Veda is not happy, as we can see here. So they're going to do a group meditation. So now they want to know what everybody felt. And, people were saying, I felt some money strength. And so Mr. Bixler says, Veda, what did you feel? And she said, I felt Justin's hangnail. He says, no, Veda, that's not what we're looking for because a hangnail's insignificant. Wants to know what's in his soul. Feel my aura. And she says, I don't think I'm allowed to. So Veda is going to try out this meditation technique on Grand Moon. So now Shelly shows up, and Veda's upset with Shelly right now. So Veda runs into her father. And Veda says, Dad, didn't you say you needed prunes real bad? And Veda says, I used to like my Ken and Barbie dolls. Ken was my favorite. Then one Christmas, I got them a camper, and all they wanted to do was hang out and buy it in themselves. So I wasn't too upset when they took that wrong turn and went over a cliff. So she's just randomly throwing stuff into the cart. She is really angry. So they're having a 4th of July barbecue now. And Shelly's ex is going to show up because he wants to essentially repossess her camper or RV. So guys like to tell other guys how to stack their briquettes and all that, and how to grill things. It's just a guy thing, I think. So she don't know what he's doing there, and he said, What am I doing here? He says, I'm here for the motorhome. And of course, Vay's like, are you here to take Shelly back? So he claims to have a property settlement, and he says, oh shit, that's my lease. And then Danny says, this guy boinking you, to which everybody's offended. So then he punches Danny. He says he says if he ever tries to take Shelly's camper again, I'm going to bury him in my front yard. So now the fireworks are starting. And so he starts asking, did you love him? Referring to Danny. And she said, I would never marry anybody I didn't love. So this is a woman being clearly honest with him. So Uncle Phil is telling Veda that her father probably loves Shelly and that Shelly's good for her father. And says after your mother died, he was sad all the time, but before that, he was pretty funny. And she's like, really? My dad was funny? So now Veda's back at Dr. Welty's office and she's like, can't you see it? And he says, what? And she says, it's there. He says, Veda, there is no chicken bone stuck in your throat. To which she refers to his medical degree. She said, are you sure those are really yours? So Thomas J's theory is that Veda says she's dying all the time because she's scared of the dead people in her house, and he says, you know that old thing about if you can't beat them, join them. Hey, Kathy. So we're going to get a little more foreshadowing here shortly, because they've been given like syringes without the needles. Um, and the nurse already showed Thomas J that they work like a water gun. So there is the hornets. I'm guessing it's hornets nest or something like that. And so first they were shooting water. Now they're doing the kid thing. Kids don't even think about the ramifications of this. And it breaks open, and all these bees come out. And Veda's also lost her mood ring. And Tom Shay says they're alive, run for your life. And so they run. Kathy, you say Jay knows about being a kid and hornets. Well, I used to do the same thing. I'd aggravate wasps. And the wasps could be vicious, and I got stung many times till I learned to leave the damn things alone. So Veda's dad, Harry's telling her they're going to go to the carnival, but Shelly's going with them. So she's not too happy about that. And she said, Veda, you have to watch what you eat here. She said she went to the carnival with her cousins, and they ate hot dogs and they got nephritis. I think this is Shelley's attempt at a joke, but Veda says they couldn't have gotten nephritis from hot dogs. It's a kidney disease. So here's the fish game. I won several fish doing this, and they never lived. So we see Shelly's got a ring, and she's like, "Where'd you get the ring? Did you win it?" So he says, "Veda, we have some good news. Shelly and I are getting married," and she drops her fish. So now they're going to get in the bumper cars, and you can still see in this scene the resentment that Veda has for Shelly at this point. And Harry says, he's not up to it. And Veda says, I'll ride them with you. So we're going to start to realize here, as Shelley is, that Veda's gunning for her here. Because she's just basically going after Shelley. So she's Veda's went to Thomas J's house to see if Thomas J can come out and play. And she tells Thomas J she's running away. He says, Where are you running to? And she says, I'm going to Hollywood to live with the Brady Bunch. He says, I want to live with them too. And she said, You can't. They have enough kids. You'll have to go live with the Partridge family. The kid logic is so great. I love the soundtrack to this movie too, Blissful. A lot of great music from the time period. Now and Then has a great soundtrack as well. Stand By Me does. A lot of these coming of age movies have great soundtracks. So Thomas J says, I'm tired of running away. We passed the same place several times. We're not getting anywhere. And then he says, So why are you running away? And she said, My dad gave Shelley a ring. He says, Wow, was it a Dakota ring? Um, and she's like, No, it was an engagement ring. And then she says he likes her better than me, talking about her dad. So Beta, she was hiding out in the tree outside of her house. And like a lot of kids that decide they're going to run away, they get tired and hungry and dirty and they decide to come back home. She sees her dad and grandmother asleep in front of the TV. So she talks about the Lindbergh baby being kidnapped. And she said, I think I'll sleep with my window open tonight. So Beta's screaming. We don't exactly know what is going on at this point, but she's screaming for her dad. And Shelley sees her and she says, What's the matter? And she says, Where's daddy? She says, He left. And she says, Well, I'm hemorrhaging. And she said, What do you mean? And and she said, I don't need your help. And she says, Veda, did this happen in the bathroom? And she says, how old are you? And so Shelly's going to give Veda the talk that a lot of young girls get at a certain point in their life. And the doorbell rings and she says, it's Thomas J. I don't want to see him. She says, it's not fair. Nothing happens to boys. I think I went through the same thing. It's like, why does this happen to girls, you know? And he says, oh, can we go swimming? And she gets really upset. She said, no, get out of here. And she pushes him. And don't come back for 5 to 7 days. So I think it's at this point that we find out that Veda, you know, when there's a funeral going on, Veda's supposed to watch Grandmoo because she gets up and wonders. So she does leave. I don't think that Veda's intention is for Grandmoo to get up and cause any problems. But I think she was planning on going to the restroom and going right back in there with Grandmoo. She gets distracted because she sees Harry and Shelley kissing. And we see Grandmoo get up and leave the area where Veda's supposed to be watching her. And she walks into the funeral. And, you know, she's not at herself, so she picks a flower off the casket and starts singing. And Veda realizes, oh crap, you know. And now Harry hears the singing. And Veda's like, oh crap, I gotta get back in here. And so Harry has to and Shelley have to lead Grandmoo out. Harry's not happy. He says, now what were you thinking? So this is probably, I'm guessing, the first time Harry's gotten that angry with Veda. So Veda, you know, leaves the house and goes to talk to Thomas J. And and she says, "What? Why do you think people get married?" And he says, when you get older, you just have to." This is kid logic again. And she says she wants to marry Mr. Bixler, and he says, "He's a teacher. You can't marry him. That's against the law." And then he says, "Well, he'll give you all A's, and it won't be fair." And so then here's the kissing scene between her and Thomas J. And she's like, "Have you ever kissed anybody?" And she says, "Well, maybe we should just see what's the big deal." He says, "But I don't know how." And so, again, kid logic. Here, practice on your arm. Hey, Ice Ice Buoy. She shows him her fist because, you know, he doesn't really want to do this. And she says, you know, just do it, okay? And um, so they're going to count to three and then kiss. And then she says, say something. It's too quiet. So he starts doing the Pledge of Allegiance. So they're still uncomfortable, but so they say they'll spit on it. They're promising not to tell anybody. And they say, I'll see you tomorrow. And he says, Veda, she says, what would you think of me? He says, and she says, for what? If you don't get to marry Mr. Bixler. And she says, I guess, and smiles. And that means the world to Thomas J. But unfortunately, we're going to come to the part that makes many people cry. So, bless Thomas J's little heart here. He is going back to where the hornet nest was to look for Veda's ring because we know a few scenes earlier she lost her ring. And he's, understandably, he's thinking that the hornets have left, and he kind of kicks the nest a little bit, but they're still there, unfortunately. And Thomas J's not going to have time to get away, but he's found her ring, but it's too late. And we know that Thomas J's allergic to everything. So guess what? He's going to be allergic to bee stings. This is one of the most terrifying and heartbreaking scenes I've seen in the movie because you see Thomas J's glasses fall on the ground covered in bees. And now the cops are there and they have to tell Harry what's happened. So then Harry's going to have to tell Veda. And a death of anybody is hard, but the death of a child is just so much worse. So, of course, Harry's doing what all parents want to do. They want to be able to stall it for so long, and then they realize that, you're going to have to tell them. And he says that something happened to Thomas J last night. He stepped on a beehive. And she said, I told him not to tease those bees. Did he get stung? And she says, maybe I should go over and yell at him. To which Harry says, no, sweetheart, you can't. This would have to be the hardest thing for a parent to have to tell their child that they're basically their best friend is gone. And Anna Chlumsky here, the look on her face, and then once again she goes to Dr. Welty's office. And this time she says, Dr. Welty, he says, what's wrong, sweetheart? And she says, I can't breathe. I'm suffocating. He says, let me look at you. And she says, it hurts. And make it stop. And he said, what hurts, Veda? And she says, the bee stings. This is hard to watch too, because even though you know that Macaulay Culkin is not under that blanket, um, it's just the idea of it. It's one of those things where what you don't see is worse than what you do see. I agree, Ice Ice Boo. You say, I always wished Aykroyd did more dramatic roles. His range is crazy outstanding. So Judy shows up and wants to know if Veda's home. Shelley says, yeah, she's home, but she's very upset. And Judy says, I wanted to tell her I was sorry about Thomas J. And guys, I'm sorry for being so emotional here. I didn't know how this was going to affect me, so hopefully I won't start crying here on camera. But this is a very emotional scene as well because we actually see that's Macaulay Culkin in the casket. And Shelley's, telling her from outside the door, maybe you should come to the funeral. Sometimes it helps. Yeah, me too, Blissful. I'm going to try not to cry, but this whole few scenes here is very, very hard. And so Shelley's once again upset with him. She said her only friend in the world is dead. She's 11 years old. And she says, stop hiding, Harry. She tells him, you run. And Shelley tells him, don't stop feeling for those people, but life isn't just death, Harry, which is a very important point. She says, don't ignore the living, especially your daughter. I think that sometimes when a lot of tragedies have happened, people do start to ignore the living. And that's absolutely the worst thing that you can do. And I think sometimes they ignore the living because they're afraid of losing someone they love. I'm not trying to play psychologist here. I'm just saying I think that's probably why people do that. So the funeral for Thomas J is starting, and the look on his parents' face here. So Veda is slowly making her way downstairs, and I think this is probably the most heartbreaking scene of the whole movie. Is when Veda finally makes her way down to the funeral. And I think this is the mark of a good preacher at a funeral. And I can't say that all preachers I've seen preach funerals have been good. And I know this guy's an actor and everything, but he says, we ask the question, why would God take a young child from us? And, sometimes, a lot of times, especially when we're kids, adults, whether they're preachers or not, will tell us you're not supposed to ask questions. It's God's will, and that's just the way it is. But I think God expects us to ask questions about death. I think God expects us to be angry. I think God expects us even to be angry at Him. And I have talked with friends about this. So I think, you know, a preacher that can admit to that people are going to be questioning things and not make them feel bad about it is very important. It's a very important piece in this movie. So you see the bee stings on Thomas J. And of course, she says the line, put his glasses on, put on his glasses. He can't see without his glasses. He was going to be an acrobat. Her dad said, he's gone, sweetheart. And Veda does the only thing that she can do is run away. and she's going to run right to Mr. Bixler's house. And as if she hasn't had enough, you know, he wants to talk about how sorry he is about Thomas J. And she starts singing. And he says, Veda, Veda, we don't have to talk about him. And she says, Justin Rhonda says I should tell people what I feel. And he says, yeah, come here and sit down. And she says, Mr. Bixler, I love you. And I love you like my dad loves Shelley. And I want to live here. And he says, I think your dad would miss you. And so, to add insult to injury, we see that Mr. Bixler has a lady friend, and he's going to explain to Veda that they're gonna be married. And this, as if Veda's world wasn't already coming crashing down. This is the final cement block. So Veda's climbing up in the tree where her and Thomas J spent some time. And this is also the lake that they spent some time, or probably many times together. And she's thinking back to the talk her and Thomas J had about marriage. And she's looking at her father and her mother, the pictures she has. And of course, the cops have been out looking for Veda. And now this scene of the cop, you know, being out searching for Veda really resonates with me because when I was a lot younger and my dad's father, passed away, I can't really explain why I did this. But when I found out my papa was gone, I, for whatever reason, couldn't deal with it and just basically left the house, walked out into the woods, and hid out for a while. And I had everybody worried. And, I feel guilty about it now. But in my kid logic, I was thinking, I just got to get out of here. I can't deal with this. And so I just left. And I heard people yelling for me, wanting me to come back. And what I felt the most bad about was that I hurt my dad. He was already dealing with the death of his dad, and then his daughter was missing. And so I finally, made my way back to the house. My dad was outside, and I had seen my dad cry once before when my Uncle Johnny passed away. But when he saw me, Dad started crying. Um, and that's something that I will never forget. That is something that will stick with me. So, this part where Veda basically runs away and hides out really, really resonates with me now. Not to get too emotional. blissful. Yeah, you're right. It is. Death is a hard thing for anyone to process, but for a child to process, it's that much harder. And then Veda asks her father, "Did I kill my mother?" And he's like, "What?" She said, "The bees killed Thomas J, and I killed my mother." And he's like, "No." I think he realizes what Veda's been dealing with for a long time. He said, "Sweetie, that wasn't your fault. Things like that aren't anybody's fault. It just happened." And so she shows her father the picture, and he says, "Where did you find it?" And she says, "In the garage." He said, "That little Chevy was your mother's favorite car." And she wants to know what her mother was like. And he says, "She was pretty and kind, and she had your eyes. And she loved to laugh." So her dad tells her that when her mom found out that she was going to have Beta, she came home and painted that room pink. She was so sure she was going to have a girl. She said, "I think every time I see or climb a tree, I'll think of Thomas J." And her father says that's good. And that he says an important thing, that memories are good. And her father says, "Don't be an old grump like me. Be happy." And she says, "Daddy, it's not so bad to be like you." So we're getting to the final a few scenes of the movie, and there's Thomas J's mother, and Harry's sitting in a little coffee shop, and he's like, "Mrs. Sennett, how are you doing?" And she says, "Some days I think I'll be okay. Others will have to force myself to even get out of bed," which is typical. It's a natural thing. She says, "Sometimes I think he's just away at summer camp." And then she wants to know how Veda is. So Veda's going to come out and talk to Miss Sennett. So she says Thomas J had this on him, and I thought you might like to have it. And it's Veda's mood ring, and now it's a bright blue, where it was always black. And his mother says, "You were such a good friend to him. I hope you'll still come by and visit me." And she says, "Thomas J will be all right. My mother will take care of him." So we're seeing, a final scene from the writing class. So I like his advice to him on their last class, be a thunderstorm. I'm not sure what he's reading there. I wish I knew. If anybody knows what he's reading there, please let me know because it just sounds awesome. So Veda's wearing a dress for the first time. We're seeing Veda in a dress. And her teacher is so glad to see her. Everybody in the class is glad to see her. And she says, I can't say I just came to read my poem about the weeping willow. And I'm not sure who wrote this poem. Probably Anna Chlumsky didn't, but it is a great poem. And I hope y'all are either listening to it or you're reading subtitles because I was going to read it off, but I'm struggling to maintain my composure throughout the last few scenes anyway. I'm afraid I might break. So now Veda's not only wearing a dress, but she's hanging out with Judy now. And over the end credits, we're going to hear the great song, My Girl. And we have officially reached the end of My Girl. And I hope you guys have enjoyed this. Because even though some of the ending scenes are very emotional and very sad, the overall film is very, very good. An excellent little film. And I probably would watch it a lot more if some of the scenes weren't so emotional for me. Um, but like I said, overall, the film itself is fantastic. I think it should be watched by everyone at least one time. And there's also a reason why I don't have too many of these real emotional movies for us to watch during the watch alongs because I think too many of them in too close proximity to each other is going to make people think, well, this isn't entertaining. It's more fun for us to watch a really bad movie or a really good movie without these sad parts in it so we can enjoy it. But, overall, I enjoy the movie. And I think that those scenes that they put in it were very important to the movie as a whole. I don't think that they were added purely to hurt the audience. They may have been put in there to make the audience react, which isn't that, an important point in a lot of scenes, whether it's a horror movie or a comedy movie or a drama or, a combination thereof. The filmmaker wants to get a reaction from the audience even if the reaction is to cry or be frightened or whatever. So we're seeing the music credits here, and we talked about how great the music is. You've got My Girl, Bad Moon Rising, Do Wah Diddy, Good Love, and Hot Fun in the Summertime. So, there's a ton of great songs in this. There's even music by Ravi Shankar as well. Run Through the Jungle, another CCR tune. Saturday in the Park by Chicago. The Wedding Bell Blues by the Fifth Dimension. Witch Doctor song. So this was actually filmed. You would think maybe it was filmed in California, but it was actually filmed in Florida. And that might have been The Novelist by Auden that the teacher, Mr. Bixler, was reading. I'm going to have to look into that because I'd like to read the whole thing. So, we got more people in here now than we had all the whole time. And like I said, I know I was competing with the Super Bowl, but I am pleased that there were some of you that felt compelled to join me, including you, Ice Ice Buoy. I'm glad that you stopped by and joined me for this watch along for My Girl. Again, got new t-shirt designs on the TeePublic store. Y'all be sure to check them out. Again, I have the link in the chat. However, if anybody needs me to send that to them, please let me know. Oh, thank you, Blissful. I'm so sorry that I got emotional, and you could probably tell I was almost starting to cry there a few times, but I hope that everybody enjoyed it nonetheless. I can probably stay on here a few more minutes if anybody wants to ask me anything or bring anything up or any of the, or you just want to mention something about the movie. You cried too? Well, I feel a little bit better knowing that somebody else cried. Of course, I'm on camera and I try to keep my emotions in check when I'm on streams, but there's just some movies at certain points that hit me a certain way. So I didn't start bawling, but I was tearing up. And it's okay to cry. I'm not, trying to get y'all to think, oh, it's wrong to cry. No, it's definitely not wrong to cry. It's not wrong to show your emotions. I just, I guess I don't want to make anybody feel uncomfortable by crying on camera. Although I have seen people cry on camera, not because of movies, but because of something very personal to them that's going on. And it was emotional for me to tell the story about my papa's passing and how I was unable to process it as a kid and how I dealt with it. Right or wrong, I dealt with it a certain way. So I guess I could tell you guys what, because we're going to have another Stephen's Kingdom on Monday, tomorrow night, starting at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. There will be another Everybody Wants England on Tuesday, starting at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, where I'm going to be talking about 3 more Robert Englund films. Exactly, Blissful. This movie hits all the feels. It definitely does. Wednesday, I expect me and TJ will be back with another Creep Show horror on TV stream, where we'll be talking about the last 6 segments of the first season of Creep Show. Thursday, I'm going to try to do another Seductive Poison, The Resurgence. And Friday, of course, will be another Midday with Dana and Jay. And the next week's watch alongs. Saturday, starting at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, will be Motel Hell, followed on Sunday, which I know it's a little bit late for this one, but we're going to have a watch along for it anyway. Sunday, starting at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, will be Groundhog Day. The movie Munchies, for this coming weekend on Sunday, starting at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, will be Captain Howdy Burgers, Exorcist inspired dish. And you can thank Jay for giving me the idea for this. So be sure to tune in for all of that upcoming this week. So Raymond Nerdy say, damn, I'm the same age of this movie. I know. When I think about movies that are the same age as me, it's like, wow. It just hits me sometimes like this movie's as old as I am, or I'm as old as this movie. But well, guys and gals, I stayed on for a few more minutes, but I think I'm going to call it a night here since I really don't have anybody else. I mean, I have you guys to talk to in the stream, and I always enjoy that, but I don't have anybody to bounce anything off of right now live on the stream. So I think I'm going to call it a night, get some things done before it's time to lay down for the night. I want to thank everybody for being in here with me, where you chatted in the chat or not. I want to thank everybody for being in here tonight, and I hope you enjoyed this watch along for My Girl. And I'm going to skedaddle on out of here for the night. And I'll see everybody next time. Y'all have a great rest of your Sunday evening. And let's make the next week fantastic, okay? Let's promise ourselves we're going to make the best of whatever is thrown at us this week, right? So I'll see you guys next time. Have a great night.